Create your player. Now you can create your player sprite. Just like the item sprites, the player sprite will fall from the top of the screen. Unlike the items, your player sprite will get faster as it falls, just like real falling objects. This is what allows it to jump up and fall back down. Do this. Use the create sprite block to make a player sprite with the label and starting position that you put on your worksheet. So remember, these create sprite blocks are variables in the sprites drawer. So we're going to put that underneath the create sprites comment, and let's name it player. Now we're going to set the animation to give it an image, and we have an animation for the alien. So remember, you got to name this, the variable. We're going to name it player, and we're going to set the animation to the alien. So that was the second step in the directions. Let's read the third step. Create a player fall function that makes the sprite fall from the top of the screen. The code inside the function should use velocity y in a counter pattern, just as when you made the falling rock in lesson 17, level 4. If you want to take a look at what that looks like, click on this link. So let's go to the bottom of our code, because that's where we've been creating these functions, and we're going to name this player fall. Okay, so we're going to use a velocity y counter pattern. So that's in here. We're going to get sprite.velocity y equals, we're going to need a positive because that's what makes it go down. Sprite.velocity y equals sprite.velocity y, and let's say +1. Let's rename these sprites to our player variable, player sprite. And last but not least, we need to call the player function inside the draw loop. So there's my draw loop. I'm going to call this function beneath loop items. I think that makes the most sense, because that's where loop items makes the items fall from the top. Loop platforms makes the platforms fall from the top. So I think it makes sense to put this player fall right beneath it, and that's what it does. It makes the player fall from the top. Okay, so now my code looks good. And okay, why is my player not falling from the top? Well, I would imagine it's because its starting Y position, right, is in the middle of the screen. Let's make it above the screen, and let's make it -10. So I'm making the Y position -10. That should start the player up here. Yes, it did. Okay. I think that's it for this level. Yes, it is. User controls. Next, you should add user controls so that you can move your player around. Your player needs to move to the left when the left arrow key is pressed, to the right when the right arrow key is pressed, and jump when the spacebar is pressed. Do this. Create a new control player function in the functions area of your code. So control player, we're going to do this at the bottom. Creating a function. Control player. Inside the control player function, use the if, key down, and sprite x blocks to make your player move to the left and right according to the arrow keys. Look at lesson 12, puzzle 7 for examples. So let's find an if statement, put it in here. So if key down let's go with left first. If key down left, and we're going to need the counter pattern, so sprite.x, and if we want it to go left, we need to decrease the x value. Look here where the x value is. We're going to decrease it. So we'll say sprite.x equals sprite.x -1. player.x equals player.x minus 1. And now we want to do the same thing. Let's copy and paste. But this time we're going to change this to right. And we'll go into show text mode and change this minus sign to a positive, a plus sign. So now right and left should work. Oh, might need to make the, oh, we didn't call the function. Okay, that's why it didn't work. Let's call the function in the draw loop just to test out if these are working. This is called control player. We might need to make the numbers larger, but yep, it's going to the left and going to the right, so it's working. Okay, and now they want us to, inside the control player function, use if key down velocity y blocks to make your player jump when the up arrow is pressed. Okay, I'm going to copy and paste again. So in the earlier exercise, if you were paying attention, they said that they want, oh, no, it says it right here actually, when the space bar is pressed. So it's really up to you whether you want to use the up arrow or the space bar here. I'm going to use the up arrow to make the player jump. So I'm going to copy and paste this again. You want to change this from right to up. And now let's go into show text. And we want to change these from player.x to velocity y. That's two y's. Pay attention. Velocity y. Do we want +1 or -1? We want -1. But I think we want something more dramatic than 1. Let's say 5. And let's click show blocks. Yeah, this looks good. Yep, he's going to the left, or the right, excuse me. Alright, it's working. Call the control player function inside the draw loop. We did that, and we tested our code. Player interactions. The last part of making your game is programming the player interactions with the other sprites. First, your player needs to land on the platforms. Do this. Create a player lands function and add it to the functions area of your code. So again, we scroll to the bottom, create this function, we name it player lands. Inside the function, use the collide block so that your player can land on both the platforms. So that, I believe, is in the sprites drawer, the collide block. Yes, it is. And I believe we are going to want 2 of these blocks, one for each platform. Player, platform, player, platform 2. Run the code to test your program. Oh wait, I didn't call the function. So let's scroll up to the draw loop and call the player lands function. Make sure you are in your draw loop. So I am in my draw loop. And there's the function player lands. Yep, looks like he's landing on the platforms. Okay, so I have to restart the code. Yes, the player is landing on the platforms. Collect items. Last, you'll want your player to collect the items falling from the top of the screen. Do this. Create a collect items function and add it to the functions area of your code. So again, we're scrolling to the bottom, creating a collect items function. Collect items. Use the if and is touching blocks to change the X and Y position of the items when the player touches them. You can look at the loop item function for clues in how to reset the item position. So the clue that they're referring to is using the random number. So let's first grab an if block and is touching from the sprites drawer. Okay. We're going to say player is touching item. Is that what our variables are called? Star and fly. Okay, so if player is touching star, now we're going to have to change the X and Y position. So let's look at the loop item function that they're referring to. Okay, so I'm going to copy these two blocks on lines 75 and 76. I'm going to copy these two blocks and I'm going to put them in our function. Oh no. And I think this should work. We want to do the same thing for if player is touching fly. So let's copy this whole thing. Let's paste it down here. Change this to fly. Change this to fly. And change this to fly. But we're not done because these numbers are different from what we just put in. So let's scroll up to loop items and see what those numbers are. Okay. So fly is, oh, they are the same numbers. Okay, never mind. So we're all set. All we have to do now, oh, okay, now we want to add to our score every time the player touches an item. Okay, so these are going to be, we're going to add to the score if the player touches the star, and we're going to take away from the score if the player touches the fly. So let's go into variables. And we're going to grab this block. What's the name of this block? Assign a variable. So we're going to assign the variable score as score +1 when you touch the star. But we're going to assign the variable score -1 when you touch the fly. Okay, now we get to call the function. Collect items in the draw loop. Scroll up to the draw loop. Collect items. Okay, the star added to my score. Let's see if the fly takes away from my score. Yes, it did, because I just touched the fly. Yes, it's working. Excellent.